All righty, people, day 35 of e-learning. Today is usually our reading day, but because of I want to get as much story slam examples, as many story slam examples as I can possibly get in. I think I'm going to hold off on the reading and just have you watch a couple of more story slams. The quote of the day comes from a woman named Vivian Pham, who wrote a novel called Coconut Children at 19. That's 5 years for some of you from now. Um, so there she is right there. And she says, there, against the dark lining of their eyelids, backlit by their most golden memory, would live the real Vince, the boy, the flesh of legend, the breath of an oral tradition. Page 56. So this is from a novel. And that this quote is really like this whole idea that there are people in our lives who really exist from a story, and that story gets passed down. All right, so again, more storytelling today. This whole week's really good for catching up because I'm keeping it super light. Your final draft of the Pithy article, the Facts ELA cultural meal presentation. Some of you still don't have your epic poem in. I'm not letting that go. And then if you need to catch up on the Moth storytellers, they're all there for each day this week. Again, remind you that we're heading towards telling a story just like what you're watching. And some of you are doing a really thoughtful job of responding to those storytellers. That's the kind of thing I want you thinking about as you start thinking about your own story. All right. Um, so the first story is about hair color. This is Diamante Ortiz, and she tells a really kind of a story I think a lot of you can relate to. And then the other story is also another story about something you can relate to, and it's about being accused or being assumed that you did something. And I think as adolescents and middle schoolers, there's a lot of assumptions made about you. So anyway, both stories are really interesting. One's cathartic, one's more humorous. And there's a discussion post for that. So here's your agenda. Make sure that Pithy article is done. The grading, I'm doing the grading as we speak. Get your Facts ELA done. Make sure your epic poem is done. Don't forget about that. Like I said, I'm not going to excuse that. That's going to go in as a missing pretty soon. And then watch at least 2 of the Moth storytellers and respond to the discussion question for today. Lastly, I'm going to do this, and some of you could sign off now if you want, but really, I'm going to spend the next 2 minutes and I'm going to do a 10-second review of some books because today is a reading day. We're not going to read, but might as well talk about books. And I will say that the next 15 books I'm going to show you are guaranteed good reads for some of you. Not every book is perfect for everyone, but these books are great memoirs and stories about interesting people. So here we go. I can vouch for each book because a student has said it was a really good read. Here we go. Boom. Number 1, Child Called It. Basically, this guy was abused by an insane mother, but he grew up and he tells that story. Can't put this book down. This one's about a man named Ishmael Bia, who actually was a child soldier, and he lives to survive. He survived to tell this story about being a child soldier, basically a little kid who's forced to kill. This one's pretty violent, but it's a real story, so it has to be. This one, Bomb, is a story of the development of the nuclear bomb, which is one of the most important moments in probably world and American history. This is fascinating. If you like science, boom, this one's for you. Devil's Highway. This is a story about a particularly tragic event where a large group, 17, I think it was 17 people died while trying to cross the border from Mexico to the United States. And there's a whole bunch of problems that happened because of that. But this is a story of survival, and it's very interesting. This is a challenging read, but it's really interesting. This is the greatest. Walter D. Myers is an amazing author. That's him right there. And he tells a story of Muhammad Ali, who's arguably one of the most famous people to ever live. And he's more than just an athlete, he was an activist. If you have any interest in the military, this guy right here, Howard Wasden, tells a story about his training, about how to be a SEAL Team 6 member. This one you just can't put down because of how interesting it is on how they train. I Am Malala. If you don't know this story, you must not be listening to the world. But this girl was tracked down by the Al Qaeda and she because she was promoting education for women, for girls, and she basically has a death sentence on her head, and they attempted to kill her, and she survived. This is Into Thin Air. This is a story, I think it was 96. These are two of the best climbers to ever live, but they ended up dying on Everest, Mount Everest, on this particular really bad like expedition, and it's about like humans really screwing up and making bad decisions, and it's amazing read. Hard one, but a great one. Life in Motion is Misty Copeland, who was the first African American head ballerina of a ballet troupe, and she tells her story, and it's a really interesting story where she kind of was on her own for a while, but found people to mentor her, and really from not much to top of the world kind of story. This is a story that was turned into a movie. It's about firefighters, and in this particularly bad, awful, horrible story, almost every one of these but one died, and this is that story. Who Killed My Daughter is a story of a woman whose daughter was murdered, and the police kind of like, it's just an accident. But she doesn't give up. The weird thing about this one is that you never find out who is the killer. I'm telling you this right now. You don't actually know. You just have a guess because the mom's doing a bunch of investigation, and she ended up writing all these murder mysteries, and this literally happened to her. This one, Play Their Hearts Out, is if you like AAU ball or any sort of basketball love in you, this one you can't put down. This is about what AAU does to kids. There's some, if you know anything about the NBA, there's a lot of names in here of people who ended up being the NBA, but you can't beat this. I couldn't put this book down. And lastly, this is called Please Stop Laughing at Me. This is about one woman who survives severe bullying, and she does, and she writes about it. And it's interesting how it affected her life. So any one of these 15 books is nonfiction. They're real, and you can't put them down. I highly recommend them. All right, people. We'll see you on the net tomorrow.